Hello, welcome to Gaming Theory. If you've been a subscriber all this time, I just want to say thank you very much for holding on all this time. I know it has been years. What can I say? But anyway, I've got a good video for you today. Today, I want to talk about something that's pretty complex, and this is an intricate tattoo coding for online gaming. This is going to be something that'll take some explaining. It's something that could be used for all sorts of genres, and I think it's got some massive potential. Though on the flip side, the conditions for this to be brought in would have to be right. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth it. For this, you would need a big game with a lot of depth and a lot of lore. And unfortunately, there's not too many of them. So tattoo coding. What do I mean by that? The kind of tattoo codes that are used by mafias in our modern day. On a side note, I think some militaries around the world have some tattoo codes, but it's very loose. It's mostly the underworld where it's the most complex. Now, there have been a few games based on modern day that have featured this in the past, though it is a bit intrusive because these tattoo systems or tattoo codes, whatever you want to call it, they are secretive and they are sacred to societies of the underworld. So if you betray their work in a game, I don't know if you're going to get hit with a copyright claim or you're going to be in a basement begging for your life. I'm just saying. So, not entertaining what is in the present, it's about what we can make from the past or future. You could indeed have a tattoo code in all sorts of games, such as knights, pirates, perhaps even something apocalyptic. But I think in sci-fi particularly, the possibilities are limitless. And that's the avenue we're going to go down. Also, for a point of reference, I'll be basing this on Star Citizen. Out of all the space games out there, Cloud Imperium would be the closest to having something like this relevant. But with that said, it is still very much a long way off. Yet before we get into it, I just want to shed some light on what's already out there. I was going to make this a big section, but I'd be droning on like I'm trying to cover all bases. Like, oh yes, wasn't San Andreas good when that first came out? Yes, it was groundbreaking. And Fallout had some good ones as well. They were really good. And, oh, and Cyberpunk's coming out. Just get to the point and show a few. So quickly, I'd say Far Cry 3 is one of the best examples of a tattoo for character progression. As you progress, there are stop-bys in the story where it's added to fill the whole wrist. It may be old, but still is one of the most brilliant pieces of work to date. It's a shame they never took it further in their later titles. They could have expanded it to not by just progression, but maybe adding different imagery via the choices one makes, such as what we're going to go into. With sci-fi the subject, some of the nicest tech-looking tattoos to reach an online platform is on EVE Online. They've some exceedingly good artwork, big, small and varied, and by race. I think they would have had more relevance if they'd followed through with the avatar interactions with walking in stations. Unfortunately, they chose to go in another direction. Sadly, they are now confined to the profile pictures, and with the avatar inroad of Captain Quarters now vaporware, I guess we'll never know. Lastly, the current tattoos in Star Citizen. There are some excellent pieces. What I want to know is, will we be able to put them anywhere we want, or will there be set places? Both are good, and I don't think anyone will complain. Only that wherever you want would indeed be impressive, but would take a heck of a lot more work. So now that we touched on some similar stuff from the past, we're going to get into it. Hypothetically, let us say there is a pirate faction, and we call this faction the Brotherhood of Driftjunk. Now, of course, by now you must be asking, is this a player-made faction, or is this a faction involving the lore? And I'm going to go with a faction involving the lore. I do think that players could adopt this with enough numbers, but in order to get the ball rolling and the player to buy in, I think you've got to give certain incentives like mission giving and building trust, status, and this will give you privileges or exclusive access. And this could indeed be done with an all-player group, but the infrastructure isn't there yet. I could really ramble on into player behaviour and if players would accept it or what sort of players would accept it. You know, you could have 100 players in an organisation that'd be like, yeah, this is hella good, I am definitely going to get this and get all my group into this. Where you could have another 100 players that are like, nah, that's whack, I ain't getting into that, and nah, I ain't touching that, none of my people are touching that, you know. So it's very unknown territory, and in order to promote it, it's something you'd have to start off with NPCs or lore. So, say you join the Brotherhood of Drift Junk. Let's say to join, they require the skin on your upper left arm. You really could use the rest of the body and have this spread out throughout, but I just want to keep this together to make it nice, straightforward, and simple to kind of comprehend. Also, you know, I really do think it has credit when you just compile it all together in one space or one place. It works kind of as a unit, which is really good. You can read it really quickly. Now, as you can see, the arm's segmented off into 5 different sections. Each section reveals a trait or a characteristic under a different subject. So these are the ones I'm going to cover: occupation, progression, character, tendencies, scope and territory, coverage, which is kind of like a rough history of how you operate or the haunts you visit, I guess, but I'll explain that when I get to it. Also, just a quick point of note, this has all been sketched by myself. It is very rough, though I hope it's sufficient enough in getting my points across. So starting off with progression, you start with the Simple Brotherhood's logo stamped at the centre of the shoulder. And very much like Far Cry 3, as you progress through the ranks, the image gets added to. With each up in rank, the logo gets more complex with a kind of a space junk tech art filling the whole shoulder. And this is great because you can tell who's high up, who's low down, who's new, who's old. I think it's a really, really good indicator, and most importantly, we've seen stuff like this before in one-player games, but we are yet to see this on an online platform. Given the right conditions, I'll explain later, I think this would work really well. But moving on, we're just going to add on to this tattoo a little bit more with occupation. Now, occupation, this could be bigger, of course, but I've just done it to fit in with the tattoo, so it all kind of slides in really well. I've made this central to the tattoo as it is central to your role or progression. What is your function in the gang, basically? And this is more of an optional tattoo. It can be changed out, but as you progress or whatever, you know, it does obviously change. It is an optional thing that you can pick or is given to you by award. So, first example, someone has the symbol of a knight. Now, the knight on the chessboard is, well, it's a mid-range piece. It's better than the pawn, let's just say. So, it can perhaps represent someone with some sort of authority, like a captain of a small ship, something like that. And, of course, you could have higher pieces that represent some kind of rank in the fleet commander's role. You could use all sorts of types of symbolism if you wanted sort of to portray hierarchy, like cards or mahjong pieces and chess pieces, etc., etc. That's kind of an idea of hierarchy, but what if you're in a specialist job, say a mechanic or an engineer? This could be easily represented by a cross hammer and a spanner. This in effect has its own unique set of benefits because it's saying to people that my profession is as a crew member. You're not interested in being the captain, which a lot of people want to be. What you want to do is to be part of the crew and hold the ship together, and that makes you very sought after. Perhaps even more so, perhaps it allows you to get around more crews and ships and thus be better connected socially than your average captain. Also, it advertises by chance. So, for example, you could be in a bar and someone approaches you and says, look, I can see from your tattoo that you're an engineer and we're looking for an extra crew member to run repairs for us. So, just from your tattoo, an opportunity has presented itself. So yeah, to symbolise that you're in a specialist profession isn't necessarily a dull proposition. Now, a symbol like that is very straightforward and tells you what you are, but what about something which is a little bit more cryptic? How about if there was a set of dice there? What would that say? Perhaps it could indicate that you were a fighter pilot or a crew member willing to take a high risk, as in willing to go on a very high risk mission. Perhaps there are some of you that care for your character and you want to see it develop, and there's others that just want to use them needlessly and throw them away, and it doesn't really matter, you know, jumping from one to the next. So you could say as a role, you're a fighter pilot, but it's the type of fighter pilot that counts. You're a fighter pilot that will take the risk, regardless of your safety or your life. The last piece in this section touches on known imagery in society today, such as the all-seeing eye. You can make this into whatever you want, but if I was going to use it, I'd say the all-seeing eye is someone that looks after the internal affairs of the gang or faction, such as he is police or enforcer. They settle disputes, rat out traitors, and on and on and on. But I think that would be a really good role, but you know, I think that'd be more based on the player side, maybe, I don't know. Perhaps they could be NPCs that give missions and are very hard to let down because they're so powerful and overseeing, they can affect your reputation overall. Some good possibilities there, but moving down to character now. We could go into more hyper detail with more tech jargon like progression, but I'm just going to keep it simple. So we're going to go with imagery such as animals and stuff like that. So starting out with a lion. What does a lion say? Well, a lion can symbolise that one is fiercely loyal either to the faction or to one's crew. A lion is a pack animal, so someone who has that tattoo is more prone to working on a ship with a team. It could also be your attitude, as in you're vicious or arrogant at times. So a lot of avenues to explore there. Another good one is a saint. Indeed, a very religious piece, but that may translate that you're a very understanding person or just an all-round nice guy. Maybe liked by a lot of people through either charisma or ability to communicate well. Is good at seizing problems before they get too heated and figuring out a solution where all parties benefit. That kind of person, someone who will save the day and really come through for his crew or perhaps a fleet of people. This indeed could be a very sought-after tattoo, not something that you could gain easily. Something that may take a load of players to petition an NPC or some kind of person who's in charge of an organisation to have that tattoo awarded. And as you can be blessed with tattoos, you can also be cursed with tattoos. The snake being the symbol of evil, a mark of your disloyalty, dishonesty or treachery. A mark of someone who does not care for a crew or captain, someone who likes to hunt solo, and when they do, they go after everyone, including their own. A skillful opportunist, someone who doesn't weigh you up by politics, but by weakness and what they can get away with. And not to forget, someone completely honourless, someone that you might strike up a contract with on the cheap, and on the escort mission he double crosses you, or maybe if you're set upon by other people, he sees that the odds are way against him and he cuts and runs and leaves you for dead. So such devious behaviour must be branded accordingly as a warning to others in the faction. So that about covers character with a few examples. Moving on, we go on to tendencies. Now, to be honest, tendencies could be anything. You could literally say, yeah, his tendencies are he's a nice guy and he shares all the sweets with his entire crew. It literally could be anything. But to make it kind of valid or relevant to a game, I think it would be best if it was based on a player's tendencies in combat. So say you encounter a person with a row of bullets on their arm. Maybe that's illustrating that he or she is a spray or pray kind of person, or is an ammunition specialist, or is more prone to manning the guns on a ship. Another example could be perhaps something merciless or evil. When encountering the skeleton in the burning escape pod, it's a sign that that player leaves none alive and takes absolutely no prisoners whatsoever. So it's something to be feared, or perhaps someone you can use for a particularly nasty job. Now, moving on to scope, territory and coverage, it's an interesting one, and for this we're going to have to use a reference. In Star Citizen, the planned landing zone for pirates, i.e. the main pirate bay or one of the main pirate hubs, is going to be a place they call Spider. I don't know when it's going to come out, but when looking at pieces of concept work like this, it's just a brilliant idea. In short, it's a massive space hulk made of different ships and abandoned facilities, all kind of knitted together, and it is brilliant. It is the pirate bay of space. It's something in the game I'm really looking forward to. Okay, so with that in mind, let us say our imaginary faction operates out of there. That is the faction's main home, but they also operate from outposts along the star system route. Let us say you work closely with an outpost chapter 3 systems away from Spider, and that is displayed subtly in the art. So if you look closely, you'll see 3 stars leading up to the spider insect that represents the actual pirate hub. In other means, it could indicate that you actually reside in Spider, but you travel a lot, such as being a scout or a black market trader. But what if you are a local to Spider? What if you're one of them players that are kind of like the vanguard of the system, or you just like to sit there waiting for people to come in so you can rob them? Then there are no stars, and the Spider is bolder to be the main feature. So just by these 2 examples, you can read someone's movements, which I think has a lot of potential. So that's all the examples I have except for one. I just want to show you a last example quickly because it doesn't have to be necessarily based around the underworld or a pirate faction. It could also be something alien. This isn't based on any language in Star Citizen. It's just an example if you worked for an alien faction or an alien race. You work to be trusted, thus you're awarded a set of tattoos that allow you access to their space or their facilities, etc. And when I mean aliens, I don't mean all, I just probably mean one alien race, but for that one alien race it'd be enriching their culture or rules of conduct in space. That's my thoughts on it anyway. So, with all that said, and examples given, some critique needs to be added to this. And by now, probably a lot of Star Citizen players are thinking, how is this going to be relevant? My character goes round in a spacesuit. So tell me, who is going to see these tattoos? And to that I agree. This is only something that could be done for the far future. I'd even say it's incredibly niche, because when you are travelling in space, you are using your spacesuit. So if you encounter a pirate or some other player, you're not going to be reading their tattoos. And also, if you were a pirate out of pirate space, you wouldn't be having your tattoos on display, because as soon as someone sees them, they're going to be like, oh, brilliant, he's a pirate. He's probably got a bounty I can collect. So the whole thing's going to be your undoing. I think what it'd be the most useful for is the internal politics between pirates. I foresee places such as Spider, Ashana and Haven will have their own cliquey player communities, because they are the pirates and outcasts of the universe. So I do see a great potential for it to take root there. I'd also go as far to say, for immersion's sake, that when you land at a landing zone, it's more preferable to change from a spacesuit to normal civilian clothing. And by that, there's more skin on view than there is armor, if you catch what I'm saying. So I think that about covers everything. That's what I'd like to leave you with. On a closing note, and I mean this in general as online gaming goes, social gaming is something that is rarely given much attention to, as development in battle and adventure always take priority. I'd also say in this current time, it's hard to draw up a roadmap to accommodate for the whole social side. It may at first need the crucial foundation work, and because it's new, it's uncertain to whether it'll be effective. But from what I've seen and believe at heart, it's very powerful. It captivates the player, makes each interaction more meaningful. Now, I won't go as far to say that the tattoo code is the be-all end-all, but certainly a very potent component for social gaming and a player's character development. And that's that, everyone. I've got to admit, I'm a little bit rusty on the speaking. It's been a long time. For a first video back, this was probably a bit too complex, a little bit too intricate, really. But I've been sitting on this video for a long time, and I just want to get it out. I think there was a lot to explain there, probably more than there was needed. But anyway, please join me for my next video, because it's going to be a lot more straightforward. What we're going to be looking at is the functions in Gear for future next-gen games surrounding the post-apocalyptic and dystopian genre. Be sure to leave a comment and share your thoughts, and I'll get back to you. And that's it, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. Be sure to rate and subscribe if you haven't, and all the best. You have a good day. Take care.